Welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders love. I did it to myself. Welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders tackle on a day-to-day basis. My name is Micah Piippo, and I am a big fan of planning and scheduling.
My name's Greg Lawton. I'm a big fan of...
Today's episode, we are going random. Greg and I are both struggling to communicate, so bear with us as we dive into a couple topics. To kick things off, we're going to have a little fun. And I've had this happen to me multiple times over the years where I'm hanging out at a social event and someone asks me what I do, and then I try and explain it to them. Greg, why don't you kick us off? How do you answer that question?
Well, now it's different than when I was doing project management, but I'll put myself in those shoes.
Yeah.
Number one, I'd be like, I get big shit done, is what I'd say. I'd be like, do you want to know? Do you want to know how you build a $1 billion railway, or do you want to know how that data center's built? I'd be like, I'm your guy, and I know that stuff. It depends how drunk I am.
And most people walk away within how many seconds after you say that?
Nah, you just say it with enough passion, and then it's interesting. It's more interesting than a wall. But then if you go down, I'd be like, okay, do you know like the 6,000 people that have to work there and the millions of different pieces of material that move all over the place? Like, I'm the guy who makes sure that everyone knows where they need to be at the right point in time so things get done.
Yeah, I always struggled with this one, and I usually just fumble through it like I probably will next, where they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, do you know project management? They're like, yes. And I'm like, well, in project management, sometimes a project manager can't manage the schedule of the project. So that's what I do on projects. I help the project manager manage the schedule. And for the opposite reason of what your answer is, they usually immediately walk away.
But you can't say that to people because you've made a massive assumption. Like if they go, yes, I understand project management, then you're like, well, you can't correct them on that then because they probably don't. Like if they don't work in the field, they probably think it's like, I don't know, Brenda or Dave who manages the office that they work in. And it's like, no, it's different to that.
Yeah.
You have to just go big.
Maybe this is like a UK-US difference, right?
UK is definitely normally more reserved than the US. So why is the UK guy being more or less reserved here?
I don't know. Yeah, I think to me, honestly, it depends who you're talking to and why you're talking to them. You know, I think like a friend or a pseudo friend over beers or something is different than if you're going to professionally answer this question. You know, I think there are.
If I was gonna, you're right. If I was going to professionally answer this question, and someone's like, "Well, what does a scheduler do?" and it's professionally, I'd be like, "Okay, let's just imagine that some person who's buying a data center or trying to get a data center, like a financier or something that isn't involved in the actual execution." You'd start with asking questions. I'd start with, "Okay, well, you're a financier for data center builds. What's the most important things that you care about?" You'd be like, well, getting
a return.
Getting a return on the money and essentially getting data sold. And you're like, okay, at what point can you sell the data? Like, well, when the thing's built. Okay, I'm the guy who stops delays. That's really my job. I go in there and I figure out where everyone has to be and what everyone has to do, and I help them be in the right place at the right time so the thing's delivered on time. And I also do some real special maths to figure out what could go wrong, and then I try and convince people to do something about it. That's basically my job.
Yeah, I go with this. Have you heard of a DCMA 14 report?
Do you know what DCMA stands for?
All right. If anyone's cracked the nut on how to say that, what you do as a construction planner or scheduler, feel free to drop it in the comments. Would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are and gals. Next topic. I don't know about you. We've been banging this drum for a while now. Obviously, you work for an AI company. You're a fanboy. You're literally wearing a shirt that has AI on it, which is a bit weird. But overall, I've seen an increase in a lot of these services, nodes and links included, offer AI that are really starting to come into play on planning and scheduling. I'm hearing them talked about more. I'm seeing them more in RFPs that come across my desk. More people are asking for them. Overall, Greg, what are you seeing on your angle for AI? A lot of hate when this first started. I'll be honest with you. I'd probably say it's like 50-50 people being, oh, this stuff doesn't work. And I feel like maybe we're probably in a bubble but I feel like the tides might be turning on AI and planning and scheduling.
Yeah, well, I can say I'm seeing two things. So number one is just what we're seeing through our companies is loads of companies now, when they put out to tender for software or they, for tools, are actually including AI requirements. So, risk software or scheduling software or whatever, they say, and they're really asking about roadmaps. So a lot of legacy products that have been bought by private equity houses and are just not really investing in those products, starting to show the colours. So that's number one, which is just demand in the market. Like if you think about it, like AI hype really started kind of 23, and the massive investment started in 24 and this year. And it's kind of rippled through to the boardrooms, which has rippled through to the objectives of the project management directors and the procurement directors, which has now rippled through into tender. So it's started to ripple through. The other side of the equation is supply, which is nodes and links and other people in the industry that were all formed around the 2020s. They've been going half a decade, so they're able to build up a product which is stable enough and has enough scope and can actually complete the workflows and even go beyond them. So what you're seeing is a maturing of the product landscape at the same time that all of the demand is starting to flow down, which is just leading to an enormous explosion.
Yeah.
That's my view anyway.
When you say AI requirements, like what's some of that specific language you're seeing?
Well, I'll give you one that I saw today. So we got asked to tender for something, and it was schedule risk analysis. So do you know when you historically you'd do a Monte Carlo and you'd wobble everything in the schedule and you'd see how uncertainty and risk affect the end dates? What people are now asking for is AI-powered schedule risk analysis. Not AI done, but AI-powered. So they still want the Monte Carlo simulation engine just like before. They still want to set the iterations. They still want to be able to set, but they want suggestions about what to put on the inputs. And they want things like large language models summarizing all of the outputs into reports so that they don't have to write them. And essentially the goal there is to massively shorten the cycle time and reduce the workload that you have to do these things, because people are wanting to move towards more on-cycle risk analysis. If I go back 5 to 10 years, you'd only run a risk analysis at the start of a project, and maybe if you're in government once a year just to kind of tick boxes. Whereas now people are saying, actually, I want to run one every single month to see how things are progressing so I know how to change. And that's possible because you're not working with on-premise systems that one guy has the skill set to do. You're working with cloud-based systems that make them a lot simpler. We've seen, there's been quite a few of those coming through right now, and it's coincided with Primavera Risk Analysis going out of support with Oracle. So Oracle have essentially end of life that product, which means that now all of these government departments have to figure out what they're going to do next. So they're saying, well, we might as well go to the next generation.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Practical advice for the audience outside of saying, ooh, that's interesting. What sort of tactics do you think people need to pick up and understand? I mean, obviously, it doesn't seem like risk is going anywhere. So learning, Monte Carlo risk simulations, how to run them. But what are you seeing in terms of how to start to understand and leverage some of this new technology? What sort of things should people be out there trying to experiment with and do?
Well, the simple thing that you and I bang the drum on all the time, which is just get Perplexity or ChatGPT and go and start playing with it and understanding how much it can automate. That's obviously the basic thing. But
shout out to Beyond Deadlines newsletter that includes one prompt related to project controls every single week. You can find the Beyond Deadlines newsletter in the comments below, and the prompts will hit you every week.
The other thing as well is
I can make that cheesier, by the way.
I think it's pretty cheesy already.
We need all the boxes to start firing off like this.
Hit the like. The second thing, to be honest, is just expect it to come in. Most schedulers don't really have a terrible amount of say about what tools they use. People don't generally choose to use P6 or don't choose to use Microsoft Project or don't choose to use whatever. It's normally given by the organization. I just say to expect these things coming down the pipeline, because the heads of scheduling and the heads of project controls and the heads of procurement are definitely starting to look at this.
Yeah. I would say there's always, and it's a spectrum, but I've dealt with two people in organizations. The first person will not update, change, want to use anything different. They want to go into their
Hmm.
job and they want their world to stay exactly the same. And if anything new comes up, they're haters. They're constantly looking at ways to tear it
Yep.
down. It doesn't work. It's worse than this. Micah Piippo said it was bad one time, never going to use it. And there's other people who are more open to exploring ideas, testing it out. Yes, it may not be perfect, and then trying to find solutions and values out of it. Now, just playing that back, if you're a project manager, construction director, scheduling manager, would you want an employee who never going to change, is a hater, always critical, bad attitude, or someone who's open, interested, and finds values and solutions? Woo! That
Big
was a
thunder.
big lightning.
Yeah,
Greg's sitting in
that's
a lightning
real
storm,
big.
folks, right now. Oh my goodness. We'll let that, we're not perfect here. You know what? I think that lightning was perfectly timed with what I was saying. It was answering my question for me and saying that obviously, and I think that it's, and it's so strange. And I know the people who are listening are the people in the camp that like to try stuff. That's why you're listening in. And I just want to keep encouraging you that, yeah, it may not always work, but the more you try and explore, the farther you're going to push it and the farther you're going to quickly outpace your peers. I mean, just a lesson from my career, I was the first person on site. This was, 15 years ago, to hook up Microsoft Access to the back end, if you remember, to Primavera P6, and then start manipulating P6 on a database level instead of having to use the manual entry input. There's 30 people, 30 schedulers across our trailers, and I was the only one who do it. And immediately, once I kind of figured it out, all of a sudden my importance level to the program started to grow. And I just liked experimenting with it, and so that's what the big, recommendation I would have is be in that camp who's picking up stuff and trying to learn and figure out and bring value. Don't be a hater.
I'm gonna double down on that as well and say now is actually the time that it's never been easier to get further ahead. And I'll give you an exact example. So last week, uh, because it's August and quite a lot of Europe's on holiday, we took in Nodes and Links, we took the initiative to move to a different customer relationship management system called Salesforce. Salesforce is, enormously popular around the world, but we're using that now. And we had these consultants come in to help us implement Salesforce. And there was a lot of things that they had to do at the start it had been unbelievably difficult for us to figure it out. But once they kind of got the wheels turning, I actually put aside a full day, just 8 hours, which for me is a lot of time, and said, I am going to be the most qualified user of Salesforce in our entire organization because I want to know all of the data. And I want to be able to answer my questions and anyone else's questions instantaneously so I have my finger on the pulse. And all I did was get ChatGPT open. We've got the pro versions. And I had Salesforce. And then I was like, I want to create this dashboard. Tell me how to do it. And I went through it and it didn't work for like 6 hours. But I started then getting it to work. And I was having ChatGPT write all of the coding. I actually did all of the SQL coding and all of these kinds of things. And it got to the point the next day when I was reviewing with the consultants, and these consultants, that is their full time job, had no idea how I coded, how I'd been able to code, and these kinds of things. And I'm like, they did actually say something to me, which was like, I am pretty scared that my job's going to be gone a little soon. And I was like, don't worry about it. Like, not everyone's going to do this. But it only took me 8 hours to get beyond a professional deployment consultant in Salesforce because of the information access, because of the the iteration speed we were able to do. I was able to go, that didn't work, tell me another way. That didn't work, tell me another way. And it's the same thing here.
Yeah, I completely agreed. I mean, one of the most powerful things is you can actually put screenshots into
Mm.
ChatGPT if you have Primavera P6, and it will tell you what's going on, what's the error, how to fix it. And there's loads. I mean, you can just go on and on and on about anything you want to learn. And we've talked about this before. It's agency. Are you going to pick it up and learn it yourself? Because someone's not going to come in and hold your hand and show you how to do it. And, It's one of those things. And by the time that hand holding happens, you've lost out on that opportunity to get ahead of people. And now everyone's moving with that wave. You know what I mean?
Do you know, I actually, random show, I was at Heathrow Airport about 2 weeks ago, and I randomly bumped into Daniel Priestley, who people on this probably won't know, but he's been a recent guest on um,
Diary of a CEO.
Diary of a CEO. Yeah, so he was on with Hormozy, and then he was on with the Stevens guy, and I bumped into him and I had a great chat with him for about 10 minutes. And one of the things that I said to him, one of the things that he proposes, which I agree with, is like agency. And actually, since then, I've had a talk with a bunch of other investors, and they were like, in their space, agency correlates actually with success, which correlates very strongly with wealth. So if you think about it in your career, like who are the people who get promoted every 18 months? It's the people with unbelievably high agency. And the great thing is, agency is a choice. You can just choose to be optimistic and open minded, and you can choose to just work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of working hard, okay, we have a couple of jobs coming up that I will see if I can share my screen for. And these are big time roles. All right. Can you see my
There we
screen?
go. By the way,
So
that's
I
probably one
noticed
of the best job titles I've ever seen.
I've noticed two jobs pop up recently, and I've been watching the data center market, especially in the jobs range, pretty intensely. And I've noticed a pickup in the if we look at it from a scale of builders to owners and clients, and there's a couple different layers to that. And this is the first time I'm noticing the absolute top layer on OpenAI be hiring for construction based roles. Now, they've had a couple engineering based roles. This is the first time I've seen a cost based role for their program. And it reads just like your kind of standard cost type role where you're
Probably because they got
benchmarking
ChatGPT to write it.
what's up.
Probably because they got ChatGPT to write it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And they have the experience. And then here's the thing that drew my eye was 230 to 355K plus equity. Whoa.
That's
Whoa.
that's going to be $1 million a year job, is what that's going to be with that equity.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like who, past what is the
We,
standard?
we said it. We said it. We said it 12 months ago. There are million. We said it 18 months ago. There are $1 million jobs in construction. This is one of them.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Google stock recently, depending when you
Mm-hmm.
got in and what your level was, you're I mean, you wouldn't have to be director level if you were a senior level manager or a senior level. I mean, based on the equity awards, you're not banking 1 million a year, but I mean, you're living good. You're living good.
Yeah.
So this is super interesting to me because what's most likely going to happen for this crowd, I would polish up your resumes, is they hire the engineers first, then they hire the project managers, then they hire the cost analysts,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll hire the schedulers, right? Every single
Yep.
program works the exact same. And so I would just have your stuff tuned up because I guarantee in 3 to 6 months, they'll say, we don't actually have a portfolio dashboard, or we don't know how we want to speed up these projects, and OpenAI is working with Oracle, who's working with Caruso, who's working with, DPR and the other GCs, right? Um, and they're going to want to start impacting how that rest of the delivery goes if they're already hiring the engineers and the project managers and the cost consultants, right? Like they're going to need that infrastructure. And then the other interesting one is another big winner I noticed is NVIDIA, senior cost analyst, very much same thing, going through finding the costs of their different projects and their different programs. And this one was interesting because it is only 125 to 195K. So I'm guessing they probably have some sort of cost team set up and you would be, slotting into that cost team where I believe OpenAI is probably looking for someone who will eventually become the like cost manager and is looking for like absolute A team. But both companies super hot right now, amazing jobs to have. And again, if they're hiring cost analysts, you know what's happening next.
So I'm going to jump here, Mike, and I'm going to make you go all red and pink. So what we're saying to everyone here is that the OpenAI one is an opportunity to work with Micah, because if I was a project owner who wanted top end A team scheduling for data center construction, I'm just saying, my man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not. I mean, never say never, but typically how these programs work are the construction managers and the engineers they hire, they're not, they just will go through the regular processes. If they'll put a regular job posting out. And interesting enough, usually they hire someone too low. So they'll just start out and be like, oh, we just need like a construction scheduler, and you're going to report
Uh,
to the lower level PM, and then they'll do that. And it's one of those ones where, it's very hard to launch a planning and scheduling program that actually covers everything that, you would want out of that program, and so
that's actually a very key point. Like, I was talking with a data center client, as in they buy data centers, like want them constructed, a couple of weeks ago, and they told me that they said, "Oh, we have a scheduler. It's the engineering manager," and I was like, what do you mean?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, they do the schedule." And I was like, "Where's the schedule?" And they're like, "In Excel." And I'm like, "And how much are you spending on this data center?" And I think that people just have to go through the pain, and eventually they'll get to the point where they realize, actually, the core roles in project controls are the ones that I don't want to cheap out on, and the ones that I want to get in early, and I need to set up these systems, and et cetera, et cetera. So maybe
yeah.
you're right.
But I mean, think about this. How does OpenAI know, or anyone who's been hired for OpenAI know that there are probably two key focus areas that they're not focusing at all on? First, they've given a hoard of money to Oracle and then, Crusoe, the downstream
Mm-hmm.
partners, to go build their data centers. So how do they know that they need to be providing specific requirements on how they want their schedules built, and planned and executed, for two primary reasons? One, in-flight tracking of current progress projects, just so they know where they're at in case they have to turn off, turn on funding or cut in new technologies. You want to be sure that you have an accurate representation of where the projects are. Number one. Number two, how are you going to actually get that infield data to then optimize your
Mm-hmm.
design later for faster project delivery? Most people fundamentally don't understand how that's set up and that works. They just go, oh, I want, tracking, or this one, they want costs. So they just are looking at their data center designs, figuring how much they cost, but they have no idea how much they're going to go. And they just want to use their supply chain to go figure it out. So that's where I think the big, who knows, but we'll see. Also, I don't really want to move. And that's typically, they want you back in San Francisco. And I got a couple kids. And so, it's just one of those things. It's when
Are
you,
they in San Francisco? I can't remember.
yeah, when you there they are. When you look at, and this is a good, just for people thinking about their own careers, I mean, there are trade-offs for everything,
Mm-hmm.
that you have to accept. And so some of these jobs and roles, while they seem like a dream, I remember I shared with Greg, remember that one where it wasn't either of these companies, but I saw a job posting that said, we what was it? We like love our work-life balance, and we're
Oh, that
offering
one.
we're offering 1 day a week, Friday, work from home, 4 days a week in the office. And then the next sentence was subject to change.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, okay, right, yeah, yeah. It's not gonna stay that way.
Yeah. Yeah. This is our big cater. So folks, hope you enjoyed the show today. We covered quite a lot. You know what, honestly, if you want those jobs, you can find them like pretty easily by Google searching them. Highly recommend, if you're a cost analyst or a project control analyst, go and get some of that OpenAI money. Get in pre-IPO, probably life changing. And for us, Greg's, any thoughts as we close out?
As in, the bullseye is as large as a barn door, but for everything's the same every day and turning over. So I'm just going to caveat that. I'm like, You've got a massive data center boom. You've got a shortage of headcount. You've never had better
Infrastructure
access
boom.
to
We're
intelligence and
building
information and
nuclear. We're
learning.
building, yeah,
AI tools are coming through. Like, I'm like, this is the generational shift. Like, scheduling has basically been the same thing since computers came in. And before that, it was basically the same thing, but with a lot more maths
paper.
manually and paper. And I'm like, this is the. And I'm like, if you position yourself well in the next 5 or 10 years, you're going to have a lot of money.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, folks. For us at Beyond Deadlines, again, you want to get into prompting. Ding, ding, ding. We got that newsletter. Put a prompt in it every week. You can go mess around with them. They're all project controls related. They are all extensively written. I think quite a bit about them, and I often use them in my own workflows. So go check out that newsletter. It's in the links below. But for us on Beyond Deadlines, have a great week, and we will see you on the next one.